today we are starting on an awesome project doing some string art. So the things that you're going to have with or need to have with you, most of them should be in the bag that I sent home to you, but you should have your piece of wood, you should have your template that has the little dots and the line on it, you should have a little cup of paint, you should have a little canister full of nails, you should have a thumbtack. Let's see if I'm forgetting anything else. Oh, and some string. Of course, you have to have string for string art. All right, so the first thing I'm going to show you is how to paint your background. Hopefully you have some kind of paintbrush or sponge brush or even a cotton ball or something at home. If you are wanting to have a solid color background, most of you, it looks like chose white or light blue. If you want your background to be solid, then you're just going to paint it. You're going to paint the top, you're going to paint the sides. You don't need to paint the back. If you're wanting more of a washed out look, let me show you this one as a sample. On this one, you can see the grains of the wood a little bit. It looks a little more rustic. This one, the other thing that you will need for it is some water. So the one I'm going to show you, because it's a little less straightforward, is the rustic one with some water. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure that my brush is pretty wet. And then I'm going to dip it in my paint so that my paint is pretty saturated too. And then I'm just going to go over the top. And then if you need to, really, rather than adding more paint, you really can just add more water and spread out the paint that you already have. Sometimes, depending on what color you're using, it might be easier to do the sides first so that you don't end up with paint all over your hands. But you can also, like I said, just go around the sides. If you want this to kind of be more of a washed look, then you would do the same thing. You just make sure that your brush is pretty wet. One of the sides, or actually two of the sides, they're going to soak the water in a little bit more because that's the part where the wood was actually cut. So you might need to blot like I'm doing right here. And this should be my other smooth side. So I'm just going to get a little more water, go right across it. And then on my last side, again, it's going to soak in a little bit more. So I'm going to blot this side. If you feel like you washed it out too much, just let it dry for a little bit, or get out a dryer, hair dryer, and you can dry it up a little bit more. If you feel like, so if you washed it out too much and you dry it, then you can go back over it with another coat of paint. So that's it for the background. That's easy. I'm going to show you this up close. So again, you can see the wood grains in there. You can definitely see them on the side where it just soaks into certain parts. Okay, so that's it for the background. That part's the easiest part of this whole thing. Be right back, and we're going to get started on the actual process. Okay, one other thing that I forgot to say is when your board is done, if you want it to look a little more rustic, like the one I talked about, kind of washed out, the other thing that you can add to it is to lightly go over the edges with a sanding block. That's just going to rub some of the color off the edge and give it a little bit more of a rustic look. For my next step, you are going to need your template. It should have lines on it and then some little black dots. Those dots are going to serve as kind of our point where we are going to first push in the push pin, but then later that's going to be where we put our nails. So to keep it steady, I'm going to center it on my board. I want to make sure that all the nail holes land on the board. Some of them, when I was making them, they got a little bit tall. So it may be that yours, especially if you have an initial, yours might go off or be really close to the edge of the page. So you want to make sure that you center yours as well as you can before you get started. Okay, so I've got mine taped down. I'm going to do the heart this time. The next step, and this one's not too tricky, you're going to take your push pin and you're going to push the pin through the paper, through the wood, just all the way around. It shouldn't take very long. You're not trying to hammer the push pin in. You really are just creating a hole. you're creating a hole for two reasons. One, it's going to give you a guide of where to put your nails. The other thing that it's going to do though is it's going to help kind of have give your nail a foundation to kind of help you hold onto it a little easier once we're on the nailing stage. If you have something that's a little more detailed, this step and the nailing step might take a little bit longer. This heart doesn't have quite as many, which is why I picked it to show you guys, because it shouldn't take me quite as long to do each step. All right, now once you're done poking the hole, you can take up one side of your tape just to check and see that you can see the outline. If you can see the outline just fine, so you can kind of barely see my holes there. If you can see it just fine, depending on your background color, then you don't necessarily need to do this next step, but it could be pretty helpful. So now that I've poked a hole through my heart paper, I'm going to go back around and dot each of those dots just really carefully with a Sharpie. The idea is that hopefully where I created each hole, I'm now going to create a little black mark so that it can kind of be a backup guide just in case I can't see where the hole is. It's a little trickier to see if you chose not to do a background color. It might be a little bit harder to see where you created those holes, but this will be especially helpful if that is the case. All right, I think I've gone around all of those. Let's show you again. Yeah, so now you can see them a lot easier because I just made a little tiny black dot where each of those holes was. Okay, so then the next step. The next step is going to be nailing. This really isn't going to be too terrible. We are not, I told the kids today in class, we are not, when we're hammering, not trying to play that game at the Lions Carnival where you take the hammer and you sludge it down as hard as you can and try to get the bell to beat. We are not doing that. You actually, it's going to be pretty gentle. You're going to take your nail and you're going to stick it in one of the holes. You might even be able to just leave it sitting there like I did. You're going to want to guide it. So I'm going to keep my fingers, and if my fingers can fit, yours should too, but I'm going to kind of keep my fingers on the sides. And then, again, I'm not going to take it way up here. I'm just going to lightly tap it in. And then once I'm done kind of making sure that it's in, I'm going to give it like one or two more hits. My hand really didn't move. It's more in my wrist than in my whole arm. So once you've done that, you're going to go around and fill in all of your nail holes. If you have something that's a little more detailed, your nails are going to be closer together. And that's going to make it a little bit trickier. You're just going to have to kind of fit into a little bit smaller space. You may have to keep turning your board so that you are able to kind of hold the nails as you go. The other thing that you want to make sure of is that you want all of your nails to be at about the same height. You don't want to have some of them in there really deep and other ones way up high. You also want to make sure when they go in, they're not wobbly. If you can just, with your fingers, you don't want it to be like a wiggly tube. You really want to be able to kind of push it back and forth and it kind of stays in its spot. You want to try your best to make sure that they're as straight as can be. If some of them go in and they're not straight, all you got to do is use the claw of your hammer to kind of pull some of those out. You can also, once you have them in, if it's just crooked, you can use the side of your hammer to carefully and gently kind of push the nail the direction that you want to go. Okay, I am going to finish this up, and then I will come back to give you a few pointers for the string, and then we're going to be done already, guys. It's not easy. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's not. But it's a lot of fun, and it's going to be super, super cool when we are finished. Be right back. Okay, that's all done. Most of them are pretty even. They're pretty straight. They're not perfect, but they're not going to be perfect. That's okay. All right, now for the fun part. Probably the trickiest part, but also the fun part is the string. So to start out, I'm going to tie a knot, or almost a knot. I'm going to tie the loop of a knot in one end of my string, and then I'm going to tie it tight onto one of my nails. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to do a second knot and tie it really tight so that I kind of make a double knot. And then, oh, I didn't bring for you. And then I'm going to cut the edge off, not too close to the end because you don't want it to unravel. Before you get started, just doing kind of your design back and forth, I would highly suggest creating an outline first. Now, to do an outline, if you just go around the outside edge, it might stay on there for a few minutes, but once you start going, it's just going to fall right off. So the key is to creating loops. Oh, look, I already didn't tie mine tight enough. Even teachers mess up. Okay, so this time, instead of cutting it as close as I did, I'm going to tie it 3 times, and then I'm going to leave a little bit of it out because it's going to end up getting buried. Okay, so back to the outline. Let me reverse for just a second. We are going to create an outline to kind of help us figure out where the string's boundaries are. The other thing, though, that you need to be doing is kind of thinking backwards. The color that you want to be on the top, so like an end outline, like on this one, I knew I wanted the light green to be on the top as my very end outline. And I knew I wanted my flower to sit on top of the tree instead of kind of being tucked under it. So I did my flower last. You can also kind of see on here, you can see the light green layer on bottom that I outlined with. And then I did the light green string layer, a dark green string layer, and then I did finally a light green layer for my outline. Then at the very top, I went in and added my flower. So for my heart, it's a little bit easier because I'm just going to use one multicolored string. I am going to go in at the end though and use a dark pink to create an outline, a double outline to kind of add some emphasis. So I'll explain how to do that too. To create your original outline, we don't want to just wrap it all the way around. It's going to fall off. So what you're going to do is you're going to go up around the next one and then all the way around it. Up and then all the way around. And you're just going to keep doing that. As you kind of do each layer of thread, you also probably want to make sure that you're kind of pushing it down. That way you have plenty of space on each nail to add lots of layers if you would need to. Some of them you won't need a lot of layers, but when you go back around to your outline at the end, you're going to want to have plenty of space to be able to do the whole entire outline without having to stop and then push down. When I'm pulling the string, I'm pulling kind of tight so that I can kind of use force to help it stay. So now it should stay pretty well. Once I get started, I'm also going to push it down. You could use like a pencil. You could use the side, not the sharp part of your scissors, but you could use the side of your scissors to kind of push the string down every once in a while. You could also just use your finger. Once you start doing all your crisscrosses, this is going to kind of become a two-handed process. So there really doesn't have to be any rhyme or reason. You can make like a pattern if you wanted. So on this one, I could start here and just start going this one back, this one back, this one back, this one back. If I wanted, I kind of like sporadic patterns. So I'm going to just start crisscrossing all over the place. As you do that though, you want to pull the string kind of tight around each one. As I mentioned, you may want to also like kind of use your second hand to keep pushing it down as you go. So I'm going to do that direction, and then I'm going to start crisscrossing a different direction. just kind of create some different patterns on there. There's really no right or wrong. All right, I think you have a pretty good idea of how to get started on this. Oops, see, I just let go too fast. So if you accidentally let go, it's not a big deal. But if you're not going tight enough, it's going to start to unravel a little bit. So you want to kind of make sure that you always have that second hand helping keep it tight. I'm going to listen to my own advice. I'm going to hit pause on here, finish this up, and then I'll come back to show you how to outline in just a few. All right, so I haven't tied this on yet. Hopefully I don't drop it right now while I'm showing you. I have my pattern, my design all done. I just zigzagged all over the place. Kept pushing my thread down to make sure that I had tension on it all the time. And now that I'm finished with this color, I am going to two-handed kind of hold one side so that I can tie a tight knot. And I'm going to go around and do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and do it 2 more times, see if I learned my lesson from the first time. Since my knot wasn't tight enough, I'm going to do 3 knots, and then I'm going to cut it, but not super close to the nail. I'm going to cut it a little ways out, and then I'm just going to tuck that extra piece kind of down under there. If you need to, you can kind of poke it with a nail or a pencil to kind of help it stay under. That way, unlike my first try, it hopefully won't come undone. Okay, so the last step on this is going to do a double layer outline. I want that to be on top, so that's why I'm doing it last. I'm going to get my other color. I'm going to tie it on just like I did before, so I'm going to do a triple knot. It's going to be a little bit harder to do this double line around the edge because at this point you have a lot of string around your nails. So you might just have to keep pushing down. You're also going to want to just keep making sure that you have plenty of tension on your string. All right, I'm going to tuck this one in. Okay, now I'm going to talk you through it and then I'm going to show you. When we do this step, you're going to be doing kind of a double line and then going back around to do another single line. Hold on just a second.
All right, guys, so that was a little bit longer than a second. I actually had to take one of my kids to the hospital because he hurt his hand and had to get some stitches. So here we are, we're back. We are finishing up just our double outline around the edge, and so I want to kind of walk you through that a little bit. So what you're going to do, I've tied my string on already. You're going to do 2 loops completely around 2 nails, and then the third time, as you go up to go a third time, you go just around the top nail. So 2 loops, 2 full loops, and then a third small loop. 2 double loops, and then a single loop. 2 double loops, and a single loop, and you just keep doing that all the way around. Just like on all of our other ones, you want to make sure that you have plenty of tension on your string so that it doesn't kind of let up. And it's starting to create a little bit of a pink outline on the side. You can see it just a little bit. I'm going to finish this up. I'll be back to show you the finished product in just a minute. Okay, the big reveal, here it is. So you can see that once you do that double outline, it just adds a little pop. It kind of brings it all together. So hopefully, let me do kind of a shot around the sides. This is my little string that I haven't tucked under yet. That's why that one's sticking up. Otherwise, you can kind of see all of the different layers on there. You can see how I kind of push some of them down. All right, when you are done with yours, as always, take a picture of it for me, send it to me in Schoology or upload it to your portfolio. Can't wait to see them. Hope you guys enjoyed this project.